Airport. They are the entrance to our adventures, the first step toward a new horizon. For most of us, airports mean rest, safety, and routine. But not all airports are made the same. Some are engraved in the mountains, some hang over the sea, and some runs are so low, a single mistake can end in disaster. These are airports that are afraid of pilots, where each landing feels more like a stunt than a science. And yet, players touch here every day. Today, we take you to the 10 most dangerous airports, hate pilots, a journey that sees you fly in a way that you never imagined. Number 1. Lukla Airport, Nepal, the gateway to Everest, about 9,500 feet above sea level, located in clouds of the Himalayas, is an airport that looks like a daring playground compared to the transport hub. Lukla Airport, also known as Tenzing Hillary Airport, is the most important entrance point for brave people trying to conquer Everest. Thousands of climbers, hikers, and tourists pass through this single band each year, which is one of the world's busiest ground airports despite its small size. Why is it dangerous and important? The runway? Just over 1,700 feet long. That's shorter than 5 city blocks. And while most runways give pilots the luxury of a second chance, a go-around Lukla doesn't. One end of the runway slams into the wall of a clean hill. The other falls directly into a 2,000-foot valley. Add the unexpected Himalaya season, the saddle fog, cruel headwinds, and storms that roll without warning, and each landing becomes a test of accuracy. For the climbers, Lukla is a gateway to adventure. For the pilots, it's a gamble every single time. One wrong move, and there's no margin for error. And yet, flights still take off daily, a testament to human courage and the sheer demand for reaching Everest's doorstep. But while Lukla challenges pilots with mountains and altitude, our next airport combines danger with something far stranger. Vacationers sunbathing just meters from planes' roaring engines. Number 2. Princess Juliana International, St. Martin, the beach touchdown. Imagine lying on a white sandy beach, dipping a cocktail, when suddenly a jumbo jet is just meters away. Welcome to St. Martin, the only place in the world where the flight spotting feels more like a contact game. Princess Juliana International Airport is a Caribbean jewel and a destination for aviation lists for aviation enthusiasts. The runway begins immediately after Meho Beach, a place where vacationers gather to snap a picture because large airports are almost within hand's reach. Social media has converted this airport into a global sensation, where thousands of people look at the procession here. Why is it dangerous and important? But here's the grip. This beauty hides a serious danger. The runway is only 7,500 feet long, enough to handle large jets like Boeing 747s. Pilots should contact very little on the beach to hit the runway in time. The result? Wind strong enough to knock people off their feet, sand blasting everywhere, and engines powerful enough to injure or even kill beachgoers standing too close. For tourists, it's the thrill of a lifetime. For pilots, it's an exacting maneuver where one miscalculation could mean overshooting into the ocean or undershooting onto the beach itself. A paradise with a pulse-pounding edge. And if skimming over sunbathers sounds intense, our next stop raises the stakes even higher, where only a handful of pilots on Earth are trusted to land at all. Number 3. Paro Airport, Bhutan, the Himalayan needle thread. In a kingdom known for its monasteries and clouds and untouched Himalayan beauty, lies one of the most exclusive airports in the world. Not exclusive because of who flies there, but because of who's allowed to land. Paro International Airport, nestled in Bhutan's narrow Paro Valley, is surrounded by jagged Himalayan peaks that soar more than 18,000 feet high. Unlike most airports, this one doesn't have long, flat approaches. Instead, pilots must weave between mountains, sometimes banking sharply just seconds before touchdown. Why it is dangerous and important. Here's a remarkable fact. Fewer than 30 pilots worldwide are certified to land here. That's how difficult it is. The runway is only 7,431 feet long, and the approach requires threading through a twisting path of valleys, without the aid of modern landing instruments like ILS, instrument landing systems. It's all visual. That means that the pilot can't see the runway clearly. They don't land. Period. For travelers, it looks like a magical descent into a hidden state. For pilots, there's a nerve-like ballet of accuracy, where mountains are dangerously close to the wingtip. Remember the twist for a few seconds, and the result can be devastating. Getting down Paro is not just about skills. It's about steel mastery, faith, and nerves. But while Paro forces pilots to dance between mountains, our next airport is built on stilts, hanging over the ocean itself. where the runway feels like it could be swallowed by the sea. Number 4. Madeira Airport, Portugal. The floating runway. Some runways are carved into mountains. Others stretch across valleys. But Madeira's? It floats above the ocean, held up by giant stilts, as if daring the Atlantic to knock it down. Madeira Airport, also known as Cristiano Ronaldo International, is the main entrance to the distant Atlantic island in Portugal. When it was notorious for its small and reliable runway, it was expanded in one of the most ambitious engineering projects in aviation in 2000. Engineers literally create a platform of 180 concrete columns, each to place the length of the extra runway over the 10-story building in the form of 10-story building. Why is it dangerous and important? Even with extension, Madeira is no ordinary landing. Strong headwinds are unexpectedly sweeping over the island, forcing pilots to fight keep the planes in the air. Mixed with a narrow approach path and a runway that appears to be floating over the sea, and you have one of the most technically challenging landings in Europe. Airlines even require pilots to undergo special training before being allowed to fly here. To passengers, the landing feels surreal, like touching down on an aircraft carrier in the middle of the sea. For pilots, it's a battle of wind, nerves, and engineering. Madeira is proof that even human ingenuity can't tame the raw power of nature. It can only balance on top of it. But if Madeira feels like landing on an aircraft carrier, our next airport flips the script completely, where planes touch down on what looks more like a ski slope than a runway. Number 5. Courchevel Altiport, France. Ski slope runway. Most airports give you a flat, predictable runway. Courchevel? It gives you a ski slope. Literally. Landing here feels less like aviation and more like extreme sports. Away in the French Alps, Courchevel Altiport serves luxurious ski resorts where celebrities and billionaires fly for winter holidays. But unlike glamorous private jets, Courchevel asks something completely different and sinks on smooth strips in Monaco or Aspen. The runway is only 1,762 feet long, which is the smallest in the world, and 18.6% is built on a slope. Why is it dangerous and important? Here's why it's terrifying. Pilots must land downhill and take off uphill. There is no place for mistakes, and it will hardly go completely. Add icy conditions, blizzards, and mountains around the valley, and you have an airport that also transforms experienced aviators into nervous debris. Commercial flights are no longer allowed here. It is strictly for small aircraft and helicopters. But still, pilots require special authentication to try it. For visitors, the landing is a breathtaking spectacle, flying past snow-covered peaks and gliding straight into ski country. For pilots, there's a gamble every time. An incorrect speed, an ice patch, or even a moment's hesitation can mean slipping from the coast of the mountain. Courchevel is not just for an airport. This is a test of bravery prepared as a winter migration. But while Courchevel challenges pilots with slopes and snow, our next airport takes danger to the tropics, where planes must dive steeply between mountains and rooftops just to make it onto the runway. Number 6. Tonkinton International, Honduras. The urban dive. Most airports are designed to keep planes far away from cities. Tonkinton, it forces jets to dive straight into one. For pilots, it feels less like landing and more like threading a needle through an urban jungle. Tonkinton International Airport, located in Tegucigalpa, the capital of Honduras, has long been recognized as one of the most dangerous airports in the United States. Located in a valley, the airport is surrounded by the robust mountains and a dense neighborhood. The approach forces the pilots to create a faster 45-degree turn at low height, unheard of for commercial airlines. Why is it dangerous and important? The runway itself is only 7,096 feet long, which is shockingly short for large jets. Pilots should perform a steep descent on the hills and roofs, clean the urban buildings with just meters, and then slam the runway over time. And because of the surrounding area, there is very little room for mistakes. Once you are interested in diving, you are in real. For passengers, the final descent feels like a roller coaster suddenly aimed at someone's backyard. For pilots, it's a sweaty palm challenge that demands absolute focus. In fact, after multiple accidents, international regulations limited the types of planes allowed to land here. Yet daily flights still roar into Tonkinton. Proof that even in the most impossible places, aviation refuses to surrender. But if Tonkinton feels like a city dive, our next airport takes urban flying to legendary status, where pilots once had to turn at the very last second, with skyscrapers just outside the cockpit window. Number 7. Kai Tak Airport, Hong Kong, the legendary checkerboard turn. Some airports earn a reputation in aviation folklore. And then Kai-Tak Airport is so notorious that even after the closure, pilots still talk about it with a mixture of fear and respect. Kai-Tak Airport, which served Hong Kong until 1998, was built in the heart of the city. In the late 1900s, it became one of the busiest airports in the world. But it wasn't the traffic that terrified pilots. It was the approach. To get into the moss roof, the plane had to set up a large orange-white chessboard painted on a hill, then a faster twist of 47 degrees above the ground. Why is it dangerous and important? This maneuver, known as checkerboard turn, forced the aircraft to bank faster while surrounded by high-growing apartment blocks. The windows were so close that passengers could really see families as dinner. Once the turn was complete, the pilot had only seconds to level out and slam onto a runway that ended in Victoria Harbor. Overshoot it, and you were in the water. For passengers, a heart stops once in a lifetime. For pilots, there was a test of skills that gave no room to hesitate. And when Kai-Tak was officially closed in 1998, the legacy ended. Many flyers still call it the most challenging view of history, a reminder that sometimes, even in the most modern cities, it can feel like a stunt show. But if Kai-Tak was about dodging skyscrapers, our next airport brings danger back to paradise, where planes must dive over a hill and land on a runway that seems to spill right onto the beach. Number 8. Gustav III Airport, St. Bart's, the cliff dive landing. On a Caribbean island, there's an airport known for yachts, champagne, and luxurious villas that feel like a daring stunt show compared to a runway. Welcome to the St. Bartster. Landing looks more like the rock diver. Gustav III Airport, often called Street Bart's Airport, is a small strip serving the rich French Caribbean island of St. Barthélemy. Unlike large international hubs, this runway is only 2,100 feet long, making it only available for small aircraft. But this is actually a mythical approach. Aircraft should first clean a steep hill with traffic roundabout, and then immediately fly down the runway. Why is it dangerous and important? There's no gentle glide slope here. Pilots must perform a steep, almost nose-down approach that looks more like a controlled dive. And if that wasn't enough pressure, the runway ends directly on a popular beach, where vacationers lie in the sun, barely feet from the aircraft's wheels. A late landing means running out of tarmac and rolling straight into the sea. For tourists on the beach, it is an adventure, an unforgettable photo op. For pilots, this is a high-point challenge that requires complete precision. Each landing feels that there is no place or fault to tear the needle between a mountain and the sea. St. Bart's may look like the sky, but from the cockpit, there is the sky along a rock. But while Street Bart's keeps pilots on edge with hills and beaches, our next airport raises the stakes in the Himalayas, where one end of the runway hits a mountain wall and the other drops straight into the abyss. Number 9. Tenzing Hillary Airport, Nepal, the one-way ticket. Some airports give pilots a choice, land from one end or the other. At Tenzing Hillary, that choice doesn't exist. Here, it's one way in and one way out. Located in the Himalayan town of Lukla, the airport is named after the mythological Everest pioneers Sir Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay. It serves as a main entrance for hikers moving towards the highest mountain in the world. While it is often mentioned with Lukla Airport, the defined feature is even more extreme: one-way runway design. Why it is dangerous and important. The strip is only 1,729 feet long, shorter than many driveways in suburban neighborhoods. One end of the runway slams directly into a clean mountain wall. The other end is closed in a 2,000-foot valley. This means that the aircraft can only land in one direction and take off in the opposite direction. There's no turning around, no second attempts. Add thin mountain air, unexpected winds, and sudden fog, and it becomes one of the most disabled airports on Earth. For hikers, it seems like the beginning of an epic adventure to leave the plane. But for pilots, there's a heart rate game every time. Misjudge the speed, and you crash into a mountain. Come in too high, and you don't have enough runway before falling into the void. In Tenzing Hillary, the runway is not just less. This is a short agreement. And when the Himalayas push the height and boundaries of the terrain, our last airport poses a threat to the sea. Where the runway is so narrow, it seems that landing on a thread of corals in the middle of the sea. Number 10. Agadi Airport, Lakshadweep, India, the coral strip. Some runways are carved into mountains. Others balance on stilts. But Agadi, it is barely wider than the island. An airstrip is so thin, it looks like it can drown in the sea at any time. Agadi Airport serves the Lakshadweep Islands in a remote coral island in the Arabian Sea. Built on a narrow bandage of the ground, the runway is only 4,500 feet long, where waves on both sides crash. To fly passengers, it seems that the plane lands directly on the water, without land for the last second. Why it is dangerous and important. Here's the challenge. There is no room for error. Exceeding the runway, and you are in the sea. Underline it, the same result. Crosswind here is especially difficult because the island is very narrow and forces the planes to fight a quarter from both sides at the same time. Without an emergency place, each landing must be correct. The size of the airport also prohibits the type of aircraft that can land here, mostly small regional aircraft. For travelers, the landing is both beautiful and terrible, like slipping on a thread of sand floating in infinitely blue. For pilots, there's a tight walk with wings, where an error can cause a sky disaster. Agadi proves that sometimes the most amazing destinations require the most nerve-wracking arrival, and it brings us full circle, which collide with danger and beauty, and where the pilots serve every safe landing. And you have this top 10 airports that not only test machines, but also fly the friends of men and women. These runways remind us that aviation is not really regular. It is the balance between engineering, skills, and courage, which is at a high level over the sea, valleys, and mountains. So the next time you go past a plane, remember, for some pilots, landing is not just about touching safely. It's about winning one of the most dangerous strips of concrete in the world. If you enjoyed this journey, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more stories. There's still more to come, including hidden dangers, forgotten history, and stories highlighting countless truths in our modern world. Because in the sky and in life, consciousness is everything.